Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about another unsolved missing persons case that I think many of you have heard about. When I was researching the details of this case, I was just in shock at how eerie and mysterious that it sounded. I just had to share with you guys. I would say that this case is a well-known case. It happened back in 2013, but I just thought it would be good to shed some more light on it, because we did receive some news as of, I believe, May 2024. So I will jump into that a little bit later, but I hope you guys enjoy. Brandon Mason Lawson was an American man who was born November 18th, 1986 in Fort Worth, Texas. He was an oil field worker and was loved dearly by his family, and he had 4 children, and he had a brother and sister. On August 8th, 2013, Brandon Lawson arrived at his home in San Angelo, Texas, where he lived with his girlfriend of 10 years. Her name was Ladessa Lofton. Between the time 10:45 and 11 p.m., an argument had broke out between Brandon and his girlfriend. They were in an argument because his girlfriend had believed that Brandon was on substances. Brandon did have a past history with substance abuse, and the reason why she had thought this was because the night before, Brandon failed to show up home. After this fight had broke out, Brandon did make a phone call to his father. He had told his father that he would be coming to see him. His father lived in Crawley, Texas, which was about a 3-hour drive from where Brandon was living at. At around 11:54 p.m., Lawson left his house to go to his father's home. He was driving in a silver Ford F-150. At about 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, Brandon had made a phone call to his brother Kyle. He had told Kyle that he had run out of gas and was pulled over on US Route 277 between San Angelo and Bronte, Texas. During the call, Brandon had claimed that 3 people were chasing him out of the town. Brandon later clarified that he thought that it was Mexicans chasing him out of the town. The reason why he said this is unknown. Brandon's brother had asked Brandon if he was hallucinating. The reason why he had asked this was because, again, like I had said, there was a history with Brandon being on substances. Even though he was 6 months clean, he did have a tendency to go back to these substances. And it was also believed that Kyle did tell investigators that during this time, Brandon might have been on methamphetamines. Kyle ended up driving to Brandon's home to get a fuel container so he would be able to bring it to Brandon so he would be able to fill up his tank. Kyle had claimed that he was still making phone calls to Brandon during this time, but Brandon was just not making any sense. Brandon would end the conversation. After a few sentences, he would hang up. And also at around 12:50 a.m., Brandon did call 911. And it actually rang at a local nursing home in Robert Lee, Texas. During the call, Brandon made several incoherent statements, including, yes, I'm in the middle of a field, pulled over some guys. Right here, I'm going to our Albany on both sides. The guy is chasing me in the woods. Please hurry. Several minutes later, at 12:56 a.m., a trucker called 911 to report that Brandon's truck was parked in a very dangerous area in the highway. So basically what that means is that it was parked in a way where there could possibly have been accidents if the truck was not moved. Between the time of 12:50 a.m. and 1:15 a.m., Brandon received and made several calls to his brother, his girlfriend, and 911. But since he had poor reception, majority of the calls went to voicemail. After 1:19 a.m., anyone who tried to get in contact with Brandon was unable to do so because it went straight to voicemail. But before this occurred, at 1:10 a.m., Kyle had arrived to the location of Brandon's truck. Before Kyle had arrived, a police officer was already at the scene. Police had arrived at about 1 a.m. At the time Kyle had arrived, he was on the phone with Brandon. The officer and Kyle claimed that Brandon was nowhere to be seen. However, Brandon stated, "I can see you. I'm right here." During the time of Brandon's disappearance, he had a warrant out for his arrest. So Kyle had assumed that he might have been afraid of the police officer and was hiding. After speaking with the officer, Kyle drove up a distance on the road and waited for Brandon for about 30 to 45 minutes. And when he didn't show up, Kyle just left and he put the fuel tank in Brandon's truck. He then returned around 5 a.m. to Brandon's truck and was surprised to see that Brandon's truck was still there. And at around 8 a.m., the truck was towed. So this was just this part of when I was reading this, I just thought it was very interesting that Brandon's brother just left Brandon. I mean, he didn't even really search for him. He just sat in his car and waited for 30 and 45 minutes. And I think that him just leaving after knowing that his brother was possibly in the woods is, I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of suspicious to me. Not saying anything. I just don't understand why you would leave your brother in a wooded area after he's making alarming phone calls saying that somebody is chasing him, that he doesn't feel safe. I mean, if that was my brother, I think I would stay there until he actually came out. Not only that, I would call for police to come help me and search for him because it doesn't seem like he's in his right state of mind, especially if they thought he was on substances. After Brandon's disappearance, a local deputy had organized a search party and spent several hours investigating the area, but they found no signs of Brandon. Friends and family had set up a Facebook page titled Help Find Brandon Lawson, which as of 2022 had over 26,000 likes. On February 4th, 2022, Brandon's family had reported on the Facebook page that clothing near the location where Brandon was last seen had been identified as Brandon's clothing. After this discovery, Texas Rangers conducted a search and found human remains. The DNA results has not been completed as of May 2024, but they suspect that the remains belong to Brandon. Discovery of Brandon's remains, I just cannot believe that they have not released any information if those were actually Brandon's remains. I also do think that there has to be some type of foul play here because after Brandon had went missing, there was a search organized in that same area, in that same location. There was nothing found. But all of a sudden, they go back to do another search, and there is remains and there is evidence. It leads me to believe that something fishy is going on, whether it be somebody knew something or there's more to the story. Because at first, when I was reading this story, I did believe, guys, please don't judge me, but I do believe in aliens. And at first I had thought, could it have been like an alien abduction? Because it was just very weird, very airy. He's making phone calls left and right. He's very incoherent. And then I just thought, oh, maybe he just went on substances and he's just hallucinating things. But what really set it off for me was the fact that they did organize a search for Brandon and there was nothing found in that location. But a couple years later, in 2022, that's like 10 years later, right? Almost 10 years later, they did find evidence of Brandon's clothing items and then they found human remains. I mean, nothing has been released yet to the public. I'm hoping that we get a little bit more information this year to figure out if those are actually Brandon's remains or if it's someone else. But anyways, guys, let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts below. Have you guys heard of this case? What do you guys think of this case? I mean, what are your theories? I just genuinely, I don't really know what to even think anymore. I just thought very interesting. Hopefully Brandon's family gets the closure that they need and hopefully Brandon gets justice for whatever happened to him. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Stay safe. Love you guys so much.